Rolling Stone magazine asked readers what the best TV theme songs of all time were. And which one do you think came out on top? Hawaii Five-0? Miami Vice? The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Nope, it was this banger from 1982. Cheers quickly catapulted into a cultural touchstone, and one can hardly deny that this catchy, relentlessly charming theme song had a lot to do with it. In the first half of the video, I'll cover the history of the show's development, and in the second half, I'll play you the theme song chord by chord and show you why these theory choices work so well. But first, please like, subscribe, and share, and watch to the end. And consider becoming a member or joining my Patreon in the links below to support great content like this. Cheers was the brainchild of writer-producer siblings Glenn and Les Charles and their colleague James Burrows. Consumers of 20th century sitcoms will know these names well. The Charles brothers were showrunners on everything from MASH to Mary Tyler Moore and Taxi. And James Burrows is simply a TV production powerhouse, with an endless ocean of credits that includes some of the biggest and most important television shows of all time, such as Cheers, Friends, The Simpsons, and The Big Bang Theory. In the late 70s to early 80s, they wanted to create a show around a Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn type relationship between their two main leads, against a backdrop of ensemble characters, a la Mary Tyler Moore, but possibly in a public venue. In fact, the concept was starting to resemble Duffy's Tavern, a mid-century radio show written by James Burrows' father, Abe Burrows, which centered around the misadventures of Archie, the tavern manager, who was constantly embroiled in get-rich-quick schemes and romantic foibles. The writers loved the idea of a tavern, as it provided plenty of ammunition for a constant stream of interesting and funny characters for the cast to interact with. So they went with that. Casting came together fairly quickly, and while actors like Fred Dryer and William Devane read for the part, Ted Danson landed the part of Sam, and the natural chemistry he had with Shelley Long's Diane was undeniable, and filming began in early 1982. The only thing missing? A cracking theme song. The showrunners were looking for a theme that would encapsulate the warmth and camaraderie of the Cheers bar. This is where New York composers Gary Portnoy and Judy Hart Angelo enter the picture. Gary Portnoy had some success writing singles for Dolly Parton and Air Supply, but was struggling to establish a permanent career. They were collaborating on the doomed musical Preppies, and were desperately trying to raise money for the show, and had sent out cassettes, yes, cassettes, all over town, but with no luck. But it turns out Burrows was friends with Judy Hart Angelo's husband, John Angelo, who approached James about sending him a tape of his wife's work. Judy had recently decided to pivot back into songwriting after raising children, and luckily there was that connection with her husband and James Burrows. Gary Portnoy then received a call from Burrows, who said, "You don't know me, but we're creating a show about funny folks at a bar, and your first song on the soundtrack is perfect for the show." Portnoy flipped out at his good fortune. He was a young, struggling songwriter, and getting a song on a major network show was huge, especially back in the 80s. He was all for it, but sadly, the song was contractually bound to the Preppies show, so it was simply impossible for Cheers to use it. Here's what that Cheers theme almost sounded like.
People like us never need to be told savoir-faire and a tan gets you by. Dom Perignon, a bay mare from a Rhone, this we know from the time we're knee-high. Girls wear pearls and a long white dress. You
probably hear what I hear. It's very show-tunesy, but you do hear some of the rollicking, nostalgic DNA from the original theme song. But I, for one, am glad this wasn't the final theme. Although I imagine some reworking was going to be done, especially when we hear how difficult the process was afterwards. Luckily, the showrunners decided that Portnoy and Judy Hart Angelo were the songwriters they wanted, so they asked for them to write something bespoke for the show. The songwriting duo followed this up with a tune called My Kind of People, which Portnoy recently admitted wasn't that good. Here's a snippet.
We sit with our friends, the old and the true ones, before the night ends. We're bound to make new ones, you never know who's gonna show at Cheers. And here's
And next they wrote Another Day, which Portnoy elevated to pretty good status.
Out there 9 to 5, wiped out when it ends, then I come alive with you, my friends.
The bouncy piano, with the alternating 1/5 on the bass notes, has that old-timey feel, but the warmth seems missing from this otherwise noble attempt. Portnoy said it was driving him crazy, knowing that they had already written the perfect song that everyone wanted, but they couldn't use it. So that was making writing something new quite difficult. But finally, that changed when they landed on Where Everybody Knows Your Name. They played this song for the network, and they loved it. The only request was to change the lyrics to make them more universal, as Portnoy and Angelo had modeled them directly on Sam's experience. For example, here's a snippet of the original lyrics, which Portnoy still prefers to this day, but I respectfully disagree.
Singing the blues when the Red Sox lose, it's a crisis in your life. On the run 'cause all your girlfriends wanna be your wife.
The producers loved the demo so much that when they flew him down to California to record the final version, the directive was to keep it as much like the demo as possible. Direct, sincere, and simple. With that in mind, let's look at the songwriting arrangement and the power of simplicity. One of the most distinctive things about the Cheers theme is the intro motif. Or should I say leitmotif, which is a recurring musical phrase that represents a person, place, or idea. In this case, I think it stands for the place that is the Cheers pub, setting up the emotions that the show represents. Bright and cheery, but simultaneously warm and melancholic. The song starts off in the key of B flat, and what many players on YouTube get wrong is that they think it starts with a high B flat major chord like this. But that's wrong. It starts off with a B no third chord, so it's just the root fifth and octave like this. This reminds me of Fanfare, which is a short musical introduction meant to announce something important. Fanfare's roots date back as far as the 16th century, but it was in the 19th century that it adopted its present-day meaning as a brief flourish, and that makes sense in the context of this theme song. It's borrowing techniques from the past to evoke mood and nostalgia in the present. And actually, I can verify this was their intent. I came across an interview after I wrote this part of the script where Gary Portnoy literally says that he suggested to Judy that we add something like trumpets so when people are getting up to get a sandwich, they hear something that says, "Hey, something is happening right now." He just started playing an ascending scale, and Judy was like, "That's it, but just play the first 4 notes." And that's some effective music composition, I tell you. So let's continue. It then follows with an arpeggio of the major triad, and an F major after that. But it's holding the B flat in the root. And it occurs to me, this is another example of a drop 9 80s phenomenon that was a major part of my Magnum PI video. Go watch that in the link above or below if you haven't seen it yet. Basically, you hold the root note and move between the root chord and the inversion of the 5 chord. This essentially mimics a major 9 chord, giving you a jazzy feel without all the hard work. This is all over early 80s music. Watch my Magnum video for a deeper explanation of drop 9s. Getting back to the intro, here's another small detail that most players get wrong. They either forget to hold the B flat on the bottom, or they play just the straight F major up top. But what he does in the song is includes the extra C right next to the root B flat, which gives it more of a suspended ninth feel. He's basically doing a B flat major 9 here, but he's taking away the major thirds, so it's like a B flat major 9 suspended. The increasing melodic tension in the intro really makes you want to hear what's coming next. This fanfare intro is very effective. And he could have gotten away with playing that part once, but brilliantly he plays the exact same motif an octave down, which further eases us into place, like sliding into your favorite bar stool. And then we head into the verse, and there are no surprises here. We're still in the root key of B flat major, with literally the simplest chords you can use. This is a straight 1-5 trot, no fancy chords, ninths, sevenths, nothing, just pa, pa. It's very evocative of country and old-time piano, especially being played on the piano, with those old photos fading in and out over it. So we get this for one measure. Then he shakes things up a bit by going like this into the pre-chorus. So at the start, he moves from the F major to an F minor. Actually, it's more like a G sharp major 6. Some people just play the straight G sharp minor. I like it with the 6 in. Sounds a little more sad. Major 6s have a soft, corny sound to them that really works here. And speaking of corny, we go to a natural G here. Which makes this a borrowed chord from G major. Since B is usually flatted, normally in this key. Again, this adds a somewhat nostalgic feel. And a moment of brightness in this minor transition section, as C minor is next. Since G is the 5th of C, it really helps push our ears back to C. So going from that B major really makes us want to land on a C. Except it's minor. And that brings me to one of my favorite parts, where he allows a little more complex melodic flourish here to fill the gap. Oh, I love that. I'm a real sucker for a minor 9. Adding a 9th in a minor key really helps make it sadder, more intense and melodramatic. And then he throws in a really rich, showy chord here that actually doesn't have a 3rd in it. It's acting like a suspended 4th. So it goes like this. It's acting like a suspended 4th F major, and it took me a while to figure out what it was. I was about to sit up and take a break, and then I hit an E flat major with an F in the bass. And I was like, oh, that's it. I finally decided that he's playing it like an F flat add 9, suspended 4th. But anyway, the effect is an almost overwhelming need for this bright, complex chord to resolve. But before we resolve it, I will say this does sound very much of its time. This kind of soap opera type pre-chorus reminds me a lot of the hits of the very early 80s, like Melissa Manchester, and Especially for Your Eyes Only from Sheena Easton. So yeah, coming off of this, we triumphantly resolve to B flat again. But here he takes advantage of the G sharp he introduced during the break and puts the chorus into Mixolydian mode where everything is major except the last note in the scale. So instead of, we flat the A here. So we get the kind of familiar chord structure in rock music. Same chords as Sweet Home Alabama. This is brilliant because this is a very popular scale in classic rock. So now he's dragging the 60s and 70s into our nostalgic vibe. It's almost like a procession of time. The song is evoking the history of music and popular culture. It's a great idea. It's very effective. Another rock and roll moment happens here where he adds in this triplet fill to get back to the B flat. Hey, hold on, what was it with triplet fills in early 80s theme songs? Okay. Anyway, these triplets are interesting because it goes back to straight B flat major here. We're back in a Mixolydian because we're doing the B flat, C sharp, and G sharp here. Anyway, these triplets are interesting because it goes back to straight B flat major here. That's why that second chord really stands out. It breaks the major scale. These triplets help fill in the spaces between the melody and keep it very exciting. So we play that twice, the 1-7-4. But this time we go to what we might call the middle 8 of the song, and it drops down to D minor here. Again, this sounds kind of corny and unsophisticated outside of the song. But within the song, it's an amazingly melancholic break that leaves you begging for resolution, which it does, going to an F and then back to the fanfare motif. And he plays that whole section again. And then we finish on the root chord. I like to add a major 9 here. As I mentioned earlier, ninths tend to add richness and yearning, enhancing the brightness of the major key. Ninths are one of my favorite chords for ending songs, especially sentimental ones. So that's the whole song. Originally, to close out this video, I was going to play the whole song all the way through. However, YouTube won't allow me to, and for now, I need to monetize these videos. So if you want to see me play the song in its entirety, become a member or join my Patreon in the links below for uncensored content. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below, and use my affiliate links to support the channel. Until next time, mix well.